another powerful episode of Mind Over Masculinity, the podcast where we break through the stereotypes, decode the modern manhood, and dive deep into what truly keeps us strong inside and out. And today's topic, dear listeners, hits home for so many men who quietly push through the pain, ignoring the signals their bodies send until it's too late. So, we are talking about neuropathy, those tingling, burning sensations that creep into your feet or hands and gradually steal your mobility, your energy, and sometimes even your confidence. But what if the relief didn't have to mean surgery, pills, or uh, endless frustration? What if healing could come from understanding your body differently, from working with it, not against it, right? So, joining us today, please welcome our guest, Dr. Kurt Simmons. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Avik. Glad to be here.
Amazing. And dear listeners, before we delve deep into the same, I'll quickly love to introduce you to Dr. Kurt. So, Dr. Kurt is a nationally recognized chiropractor and the founder of the Brookfield Disc Center in Wisconsin. So, for more than 25 years, he helped people reclaim their lives through non surgical spinal decompression and advanced, non invasive treatments that truly work. So, Dr. Simmons isn't just redefining the spine care, but he is redefining the hope. So, I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's crack the code on neuropathy and talk about what real sustainable relief looks like. So, welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
Mm, Lovely. Well, so Dr. Simmons, most men tend to shrug off the numbness or tingling until it becomes unbearable, right? So, why do you think that men in particular delay addressing nerve pain or neuropathy symptoms?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's probably just pride. A lot of them don't like to go to the doctor. Medically, for neuropathy, they put you on gabapentin, Lyric, or Cymbalta, which most of the patients that I see, by the time I see them, they've been on it for 2 months or longer. And most of them tell me that, the first couple of months, it gave them some symptom relief. But after that, they really don't know why they're still continuing to take it. Um, it masks the symptoms for a short period of time, but it doesn't do anything to correct the cause, which is kind of the downfall of our healthcare system here in America.
Got it. So, do you find that tough it out mindset often makes the conditions harder to treat later on?
That can play a part in it. You definitely have to have a patient that wants to get better and that is concerned about, taking care of and addressing the problem. I tell patients if all you're looking for is pain relief,
Mm.
you're probably in the wrong clinic. Drugs, medication, those things can give you temporary pain relief, but it doesn't do anything to affect the cause. So when a patient comes in, I tell them the most important thing is we've got to get the right diagnosis. Because if we don't have the right diagnosis, if we don't know what's causing your neuropathy, you're probably not going to get the result that you're looking for. Whereas if we can narrow it down, yes, it is neuropathy. How severe is it? What's going to be the best approach to take to help alleviate it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that really hits on the something bigger, like how men are conditioned to see pain as weakness instead of a message from the body. But I think that cultural pressure keeps us, I mean, so many from seeking the help until it's almost too late. So, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, and also, you have built your career around non-invasive solutions for the spinal and the nerve health. Um, what was the turning point that made you believe that surgery wasn't the only answer?
Well, one of my primary specialties is working with herniated bulging discs, which some of that can also tie into neuropathy because all the nerves in the legs come from the lower back. So if you've got neuropathy, whether it's diabetes induced, chemotherapy induced, or what they call iatrogenic, which means they just don't know what's causing it, a lot of times there can be a component of pressure on the nerve in the back from the disc. And In this country, in the US, we do way too many spinal fusion surgeries. The outcomes with it are not good. If you have one, probably 50% of the patients within 2 to 5 years have a second one. If you have a second one, your risk of having a third is incredibly high. And most of those patients, they fall into what's called failed back surgery, and they end up on pain medication. They go to pain management to try and manage their pain, and most of them, their quality of life is just it's awful.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, like, yeah, I mean, was there a particular patient or a moment uh, that confirmed for you that this approach could change the lives?
Yeah, because I used to run a traditional chiropractic office. Patients would come in when they'd hurt. We'd adjust them. We'd do some therapies. They'd get better, and they'd be on their way.
Mm.
Um, but I also got to the point with a lot of those patients, especially disc patients and neuropathy patients, just chiropractic alone, I couldn't help them. And you'd end up referring them out. And when you refer them out, you see where the progression is and where they go. And it's okay, there's got to be more that we can do here. And there is. And I always tell patients, it's not a panacea. We can't help everybody. If I can't help you, I'm not going to keep you in my clinic. But if we can help you, then, we're going to work together to help you improve your life, keep you away from surgery, keep you off of drugs and medication, and, give you the best possible long-term outcome.
Very truly said, yes. Exactly. And yeah, I mean, I love that because it's not just a kind of medicine, it's a philosophy. And what you are talking about, giving people ownership of their healing, which is so empowering, especially for the men, uh, like who often feel out of control when their body fails them. Right. So, yeah. And like neuropathy has many causes: diabetes, injuries, even the chronic stress. So, from your experience, what's the biggest misconception that people have about it?
The biggest misconception is that look, they can manage it on their own or it'll get better. Neuropathy, I always tell patients, neuropathy, if you have true neuropathy, it's a chronic progressive condition. It's something you're always going to have. And that's the reason why our program really has two components. There's an in clinic portion because there's a lot of things we can do in clinic with equipment that we have that patients, not affordable for patients to buy at home, but they can come in, start the process there. But what's really important is a home kit. We give them a home program so that after the 3 months in our clinic, and actually even during the 3 months of our in clinic care, they can get treatment at home. They can do it every day. If they've got time, they can do it twice a day. We use nutrition, we use red light therapy, we use vibration therapy, we use an electrical stim unit that is used at Mayo Clinic. And for patients that can't, maybe they're too far away, they can't, it's not realistic for them to come into our clinic. We can just put them on the home program. I can treat them, remotely via Zoom and, instruct them on what to do and how to do it. And they can do all their treatment at home and still get, good results and usually significantly better results than what they're getting with what they're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Mhm. And lovely. I mean, um, how do you help patients like separate the symptoms from causes? So they're not just masking the pain, but actually addressing what's wrong. So, what is it?
Well, and most of them have an understanding of that by the time they come into my clinic because they've been through the medical system. They've gotten no relief. They've gotten no answers. They've gotten no reason as to why they have what they have. And the doctor just, okay, well, this is a medication. This is all we've got for you. Sometimes it stops people from coming into the clinic because what we do isn't covered by insurance. But I always tell patients, your insurance company doesn't care about your health. Um,
Mm.
our healthcare system, quote unquote, healthcare in America is run by the pharmaceutical companies. Everything is geared towards a drug or a medication. If you have this condition, you get this. If you have this condition, you get this. If you have this condition, you get this. And I'm not saying that there's not a time and a place for medication. There are some very, very useful times, but most of it should be short term. There's no medication that will give you a long-term outcome without risks and side effects of taking that medication. And most of them don't correct the cause of the problem. They just cover up the symptoms and you feel better, but eventually you're going to reach the point where that medication's not going to work or you can't take any more of it. And it's not going to help.
True. Exactly. And like uh uh I mean, many listeners might assume that once the nerve damage happens, it's permanent. So is there a hope for the regeneration?
There is, and that's why we do an initial evaluation to try and kind of grade where they're at. Uh, every nerve has 9 different types of fibers. Only 2 of those are pain fibers. You have proprioception, you have numbness, tingling. So depending on what's being compressed or what's being affected, patients with neuropathy may have different conditions. But generally with neuropathy, it's almost always bilateral on both sides. Usually starts in the feet, progresses up the ankle and up the calf. So the worse it is, usually the higher up the leg it's coming. We'll also see it in the hands occasionally. It's not as frequent in the hands, but it can happen there as well.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. So, okay, yeah, understood. So, like, mm, can you share an example of a patient who turned things around using the methods that you specialize in?
Yeah, most of our patients, if they follow our protocol, and I always tell them within the 3 month period, I would expect to see a 50% reduction of your symptoms, if not more. And it varies across the board. Again, it depends on age, what type of shape they're in physically,
Mhm.
how consistent they are with the treatment. I always tell them the more you can do, the quicker you see results. And they've got to be consistent with what we tell them to do. If they're following what we're telling them to do, I haven't had a patient who's gotten, bad results. And we're upfront with them. We may not get 100% resolution, but how much different would your life be if you were 50% better, if you were 60% better? Is it worth the time and the effort to put this into it? And on the flip side, knowing if you don't do anything, it's just going to continue to get worse.
Exactly. So, like, I mean, if you can share an example of a patient who turned things around using the methods that you specialize in.
Yeah, I had a patient. He was in his early 80s. Unfortunately, he's
Mhm.
since passed because he had some heart issues, but
Okay.
he had numbness and tingling in his feet. His balance was getting worse. He was coming into the clinic twice a week. He was also doing the home treatment twice a day and once a day on the days he was in the clinic. And he got significantly better. He was much more stable. He could walk
Mhm.
for extended periods. I had another patient. He came in, all he wanted to do was be able to walk with his grandchildren.
Mhm.
And when he first started, he couldn't walk a half a block without having to sit down because of his pain. By the time we were done with the 3 months in clinic, he could walk, 3 blocks, which you say that to some people, and like, well, that's not very far. But for somebody who couldn't walk even a block to begin with, that was a huge difference.
Understood. Yep. And yeah, I mean, that's incredible because it's one thing to read about the recovery in theory, but hearing it from someone who's lived it gives people hope that healing is not a kind of miracle, it's a method. So that's true. And also, if you share about, like, from your perspective, what's the lifestyle habits that contribute most to nerve health?
One of the biggest things, especially in the U.S., is diet. Um,
Okay.
we eat a lot of processed foods. We eat a lot of sugar. Sugar drives inflammation in the body. People don't think about it, but carbs are basically sugar.
Okay.
So I always tell patients the more you can do to limit on a real basic thing, if you can limit sugar, if you can limit the amount of carbs that you're eating, that's going to get you pointed in the right direction. One of the other huge issues in this country, especially with diabetics, is the amount of diet soda people drink. Diet soda is sweetened with artificial sweeteners. They're all neurotoxic. There are some good alternatives that are sweetened with stevia that you can use instead of diet soda, but it's not uncommon for me to see a diabetic patient that drinks 6 to 8 cans of soda a day, which is just crazy. And they don't drink any water. So just even that, just simple change, if you can get them to do that, they'll start to make a big difference just doing that alone.
Exactly. Exactly. So, um, and if you had to name one daily ritual that makes the biggest difference, then what would it be?
It'd be, I'd say, limiting sugar and carbs in your diet, and getting rid of artificial sweeteners. If I had to pick just one, I'd say artificial sweeteners is probably the biggest.
Okay. So I appreciate that because prevention often feels boring compared to the treatment, but those small habits are what keep us strong enough to um, avoid the pain in the first place. So that's true. Yep. And also, like, if someone listening right now is struggling with the neuropathy or the chronic pain, but feels skeptical about the non-surgical solutions, then what would you say to them?
I don't get anybody in my clinic usually that's not skeptical, because this goes against everything they've been taught. It goes against everything that they've been told, and they haven't been told about this from their medical doctor. But the medical doctor's got three alternatives. They've got physical therapy, they've got drugs, and they've got surgery.
Mm.
For neuropathy, most of them go right to the drugs, because the other two don't make any difference. And I tell patients, do your homework. Dig into it, find out if you want to talk to other people. You can go on our website, you can see testimonials from patients. I do phone consultations with patients because I find that sometimes the phone consult will break down that barrier of having to come into the clinic. They're afraid to come in, they don't want to come in. So I tell them, well, you know what? Let's schedule a phone consultation. I can go through, answer your questions in 5, 10, 15 minutes. If you're comfortable with me and you want to find out more, we'll bring you into the clinic and do an evaluation. If you're not, that's fine. Um, would I love to help everybody? I would. Is it realistic? No. Some people just don't want to look outside what's normal. And if they don't, they're probably not a good for my clinic.
Interesting. Interesting. So, and like for the men, especially who might feel embarrassed to ask for the help, what's the first step they can take towards healing? What do you say?
Uh, Jokingly, a lot of them come in when it starts to affect their golf game.
Okay.
So, eventually they all come to a realization that this isn't getting any better. I need some help. Um,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things, it's the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I can't tell you how many patients I've talked to that initially didn't want to have anything to do with it, didn't want to try anything. And then 3 months, 6 months, 9 months later, they'll call me back and say, hey, you know what, can I still come in and we can do that evaluation? And I'll say, yeah, come on in. Let's see if we can help you. If I can't help you, I'm not going to keep you in my office, but if I can, we'll talk about what your options are.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. So, I would say, I mean, what I love about this conversation, dear listeners, with Dr. Kurt, is how it reframes the strength not as the absence of pain, but as the willingness to face it intelligently. And healing doesn't always come from the scalpels and the prescriptions. Sometimes it comes from the patience, persistence, and the right perspectives. So if you have been living with that quiet ache, that tingling and that numbness, maybe it's a time to stop ignoring it and start understanding it, because your body is not your enemy. It's your oldest ally trying to speak up. So thank you so much, Dr. Simmons, for reminding us that the real relief is not about the quick fixes, but it's all about reclaiming the trust in our bodies and taking responsibility for our well-being. Uh, so if someone wants to connect with you, Dr. Simmons, so what would be the great medium to connect?
They can either go onto my website, they can connect me through that, which the website is www.brookfieldcenter.com. Otherwise, they can call or text my clinic number, which is 262-246-3000.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the details into the show notes for a easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host Avik signing off from Mind Over Masculinity, where healing starts with honesty. So, thank you so much.